Websites are important in communicating to the whole world concerning the products and services you offer. However, poorly configured and developed websites pose a threat to you who owns the website and those who visit the website. So today, let us look at some of the cyber threats facing poorly developed websites. Now, the first form of attack we will look at is the malware attacks. Malware attacks involve the installation of malicious software onto a website server or onto a user's computer through the website. Malware can be used to steal sensitive data, launch a denial of service attack, or turn a user's computer into a botnet node to be used for distributed denial of service attacks on other computers. These malware include ransomware, backdoors, cryptojacking malware, botnets, just to mention a few. Our next form of attack is cross-site scripting attacks. Cross-site scripting attacks involve the insertion of malicious scripts into a website's pages, which can then be executed by users who visit the website. This type of attack can be used to steal user credentials, inject malware onto a user's computer, or redirect users to phishing sites. There are various forms of cross-site scripting, including reflected cross-site scripting, stored cross-site scripting, and document object model-based cross-site scripting. As for the reflected cross-site scripting, this occurs when an attacker injects malicious code into a URL parameter, which is then reflected back to the user in the website's response page. For example, an attacker might send you a link that includes a malicious script in the URL parameter. When you click on the link, the script is executed on your browser, allowing the attacker to steal your cookies, login credentials, or other sensitive information. As for the stored cross-site scripting, it occurs when an attacker injects malicious code into a web page that is permanently stored on the server and served to all users who visit the page. For example, an attacker might inject a malicious script into a forum post or comment field. When other users view the page, the script is executed in their browser, allowing for an attack. As for the DOM-based cross-site scripting, DOM-based cross-site scripting occurs when an attacker injects malicious code into the document object model of the web page. This can occur when a website uses client-side scripts to modify the page's content based on user input. For example, an attacker might inject a script into a search field that modifies the page's DOM to execute the attacker's code. The next form of attack is the distributed denial of service attacks. Distributed denial of service attacks are a type of cyber attacks where a hacker overwhelms a website with bogus traffic from multiple sources. This renders the website inaccessible to legitimate users. It is often accomplished using botnets, which are networks of compromised computers that can be controlled remotely by a hacker. In our previous videos, we talked about how your phone and other smart devices like smart TV and microwave can be used to create botnets or zombies that are then used to perform denial of service attacks on other computers. Check it out on the link below. Before we move to our next form of attack, please take your time to subscribe and like, and also share the video so that it is shown to many who will benefit from it. Our next form of attack is SQL Injection Attacks. SQL injection is a type of cyber attack that targets web servers and applications that use SQL databases. The attack involves injecting malicious SQL code into a web application's input field to execute unauthorized SQL commands. This allows an attacker to bypass security measures and gain access to sensitive information. There are various forms of SQL injections, including login bypass, information disclosure, and database modification. Login bypass is a situation where an attacker enters a specifically crafted SQL command into the login form that tricks the application into granting them access without requiring valid login credentials. Information disclosure is a situation where an attacker injects SQL code that retrieves sensitive information from the database, such as passwords, credit card numbers, or personal information. With the database modification, it is a case where a hacker injects SQL code that modifies the database, such as deleting records, adding new users, or changing access permissions. Our next form of attack is brute force attacks. Brute force attacks involve the use of automated tools to try to guess a user's password by repeatedly attempting different combinations of letters, numbers, and symbols. This type of attack can be particularly effective against weak passwords and commonly used passwords. Under this type of attack, we have password guessing, credential stuffing, and brute force directory traversal. Password guessing is a case where an attacker uses an automated tool to try a large number of possible passwords in rapid succession until they find the correct one. The tool might use a list of common passwords, dictionary words, or generate random strings of characters to try. Credential stuffing is a case where an attacker uses stolen login credentials from other websites or data breaches to try to gain access to a target website. Many people use the same password or username across multiple accounts, so an attacker who obtains credentials from one site can use them to try to log into other sites. For the brute force directory traversal, this is where an attacker uses an automated tool to try a large number of directory and file names in a web application in order to find sensitive information that is not intended to be public. For example, the attacker might try to access a password file or configuration file by guessing the correct directory and file names. We discussed how you can stay safe while using the web browser in our last video. You can check it out on the link below. Mitigating the above discussed cyber attacks lie majorly with the web developers. Here are a few steps to consider. To mitigate malware attacks on web servers, keep software up to date, use strong passwords, choose reputable hosting and security services, and implement secure website code. As for the cross-site scripting attacks, implement input validation and sanitization, encode user input, implement content security policy, and disable execution of scripts from untrusted sources. For the distributed denial of service attacks, implement content delivery network, increase bandwidth, implement packet rate limiting, web application firewalls, and use DDoS mitigation services. For SQL injection attacks, implement input validation and sanitization, limit user permissions, use parameterized queries, and implement web application firewalls. Lastly, for brute force attacks, use strong and complex passwords, limit login attempts, implement multi-factor authentication, and use captchas. That is all for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next week.